time for, unless you want
All right.
to knife sharpening, I could do a show on that these times.
Okay, well then, welcome to the Evergreen Bed and Breakfast virtual travel experience. And we have on the program tonight, Jack's going to share sort of a couple of trips to Arkansas. I thought Billy's idea of combining pictures of it doesn't have to just be one trip. It can be just things to see that you've seen over time. So it covers some sightseeing and as well as some hiking options. And then I was looking through his PowerPoint and I realized there was something that we had a gathering at that is on the border of Missouri and Arkansas. And part of it's actually in Arkansas, so I figured it qualified. So I went and stuck in a bunch of pictures in the middle of Jack's presentation. So we're gonna kind of go back and forth with that a little bit. And then for the recipe segment, it follows my theme of having like go-to items on hand for when people drop by, and it's just a fun little dessert. And I think with the holidays coming up, it might be helpful to go over. So I guess we need to do a screen share, and Jack, if you want to take over.
I'll do that, and welcome Patricia and John from Fulshire, Texas, I guess, down there. So that's great. To speak, Patricia, you'll have to push the space bar.
Oh, and I should say that again, I think we'll probably hold questions till the end, and or you can type some in the chat column if you want. That works well too.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
So I'm going to share my screen, and the subject of what we'll talk about today is an overview of the things that I like in Arkansas. And one of the things that's so interesting to me is when you travel to other states, I've always found things that I love. I don't care what state I go to. I mean, there's such wonderful, interesting things. And the nickname, Texas is the Lone Star State. Arkansas is the natural state. And there were just, it's truly a place where you've just got some great stuff to see. And the best parts of it are not the man-made things, in my opinion. It's the natural things that are there, just really wonderful. And so as I said, we're going to cover some different things in terms of the hiking and the other. Kathleen, I am not able seemingly to advance my images. Oh, there it goes. On traveling to Arkansas, if you can somewhat follow my cursor, that's the Missouri line and that's the Oklahoma line. It comes down this way. And here's Little Rock. And we've got a grouping of evergreeners up in the upper area near where University of Arkansas is in Fayetteville and Walmart headquarters in Bentonville. Eureka Springs is kind of a cluster there that we have. And then down here in Hot Springs, just outside of Little Rock, that area. And these are mountains in here, and part of the Ozark chain. And so I've kind of divided this into the upper section that we'll talk about, and then the lower. But just to let you know, there are evergreeners in both locations, and we've stayed with a couple of people right here on Table Rock Lake, which is on the Missouri edge, and then over here in Branson too. So,
Jack, let me just share these people that we stayed with. It's interesting. Both of them, they live very close to each other. For a while, you think there's just one house there. But I mean, they're just like 2 streets away. But each of them have very cute cabins that are built either on an adjacent lot or right behind them. And they each have evergreen guest rooms in their house. And they do the other cabins as other vacation rental or something else. But if it's not booked, like in the off season, they let Evergreen members stay there. And both of the cabins, I think, are 2-bedroom, kitchen, living room, everything. And so that's kind of a fun added benefit in this area for seeing some of these sites. So.
I had my daughter and her husband and my son and his wife joined me on a trip up there, and we stayed at one of those separate cabins, and there was plenty of room. It's just really, it's a beautiful place. I mean, we had like bald eagles soaring outside the deck because we were overlooking the lake, probably 300 feet above the lake. So the eagles are flying below you and things. It was a beautiful place. Up in that area, there's some very interesting architectural features and all. This architect, Fay Jones, he had been a student of Frank Lloyd Wright, but instead of building everything horizontal, like in the prairie style, he would do things vertical. And this is just a beautiful little area. A lot of the university people use this for weddings. And it's really a pretty neat sight to see. And I'm going to turn this over to Kathleen here as she talks about a place where we went for her parents' 65th wedding anniversary.
Yes. So I don't know, has anyone heard of Dogwood Canyon Nature Park? Remember when Jack showed you the houses that had the people with the extra cabins? They were 13 miles from this canyon, this Dogwood Canyon. So I went ahead and screenshotted a picture of their, the hub where the gift store is and where you would go when you first drive in to check on things. And the reason I really enjoyed it is we planned of course, we had 20 some people, so we weren't doing Evergreen. We rented cabins or houses. And then we planned activities for 4 days for everyone. And one of the days, and we had people ranging from probably 15 to 85. And so we needed to do activities that would be enjoyable for that whole range. And this, everyone just loved it. It was, so I think it has a little something for everyone. And I was looking up what the ticket prices were, and the seasonal pricing is $15 for an adult. Somewhere else in the scheme of things, I saw a $70, but I couldn't tell what it related to. So it's the kind of thing you really, if you're going to go, you do want to book a ticket ahead of time. And if you want to do any of they have some, they call them adventures, and you can bring your own bicycle, or they have bikes to rent. And I had a friend who just knew I'd recommended this and went biking there about 2 months ago and just loved it. It's fairly flat. You have the choice of it being flat or not. So, and I'll tell you later about the wildlife tram tour, which was a big hit. So this is just kind of what the grounds look like, one of the bridges you crossed. Okay, and I showed this. We brought a picnic, and they let you bring your own food, or at least they did. Now this was, 10 years ago or so. But they had a covered area. It was very nice for picnics. Okay. And just some of the scenery that you walk around or drive past. So Jack, go ahead. Covered bridge, Billy, I thought of you. Uh, I'm now looking at the picture. I wish I had gotten a picture from the side. It would have told us a lot more than just the front, having seen all of your bridge pictures. Anyway, your tram takes you through there, or you can bike through it. So they do let you go fishing, and these are rainbow trout. You do, I think if you need to rent a pole, there's a fee, and there are two places to fish. One is catch and release, and the other is catch and keep. And if you do that, it's like $5 a pound for the fish that you take home, and there's a place where you clean them and everything. So, but you can give them food. There's a little, place where you can get food to feed the fish. So of course we had to do that, and they were big. This is a wedding chapel, and so it's all glass on the other side, and you can reserve it. But the next slide shows what the view is. This is what you see from inside the chapel. So it's really just beautiful. And the next slide, these are my parents on their anniversary. So that was very fun. Okay. And the next couple slides, we were on the tram, and it would stop different places. So I just thought this again is just what, if you wanted to walk, there are hiking trails, but if you want to walk or bike, these were bathrooms. So there are bathrooms along the way, which everybody kind of wants to know about. So I stuck those pictures in, okay? And just more road crossings and pretty terrain. And that's lovely. I mean, it's just the limestone and the water, and it was gorgeous. Okay. Next one. Next one, just pictures. And it was interesting. We had the tram to ourselves, and this was our group. And it was funny because there were other people there, but we kind of never ran into them. It was really very nice. Just, I think they have the timing, and this was in June, so it's not like there weren't people. They just had it very well organized and timed. Okay, just more of the water and rocks and foliage. Just fascinating geology. And you can do a tram tour of just your area, or you can go into this elk country, and this gets you into into Arkansas, and you go up into really mountains, and these animals are just, they look so happy and well fed, and really quite beautiful. And it was June, but it's like they were losing their winter coats. It would seem kind of late to me, but next one. Yeah, that's one of my favorite pictures. I enjoyed that one. Isn't that great?
The buffaloes do lose their shagginess, and in the summer, but the baby is so cute. They look like baby cows at that age.
They do.
So they're very, very cute.
Yeah. So if anybody has something it would be fun just to go, but if you have something to celebrate and have a wide age group, this really was a lovely thing to do, because everyone was together in the tram and could talk. And yet it didn't matter if you were the 15-year-old or the 85-year-old, everybody was going at the same pace. So keep that in mind as a really fun, special place to go. And now back to the rest of Jack's trip.
Yeah, Kathleen and I did a trip down the Buffalo River, which is in the northern part of Arkansas. Eureka Springs would be our closest Evergreeners. But we did this, like canoeing here on this. And And the mountainsides look like this. I mean, they go straight up hundreds of feet, and you're canoeing down here and there. And very, very good fly fishing, kind of like for any fisherman out there, the world record brown trout, not rainbows, not cutthroat trout, but brown trout. You think, well, that's got to be in Wyoming or Montana or Idaho. No, it's from Arkansas. So somebody caught a 25-pound trout or something on a fly rod in Arkansas. It's just a very, very nice place, beautiful things. So, you know, up to this point, we had been looking up at Eureka Springs up in the upper part. Now we're going to move down more to the central part of the state, central and central western part of the state. And the aerial view, I mean, that's a trail showing that, but it's mountain ridges. And these are the Ozark Mountains. And it's really known for hiking. It is just a primo area. And we live in Dallas, but it's right at 5 hours to the start of the hikes and stuff. So it is not that big a deal to get to, you know, in some of these places. And in that area, we have a concentration of evergreeners that are near Hot Springs, or a place called Hot Springs Village. And this is the national park, which is, if you good trivia, what's the smallest national park in the whole park system? This one, because it's literally the Springs area here in Hot Springs, but you've got things that look like this, where you've got water pouring and coming out of it, and you can see these pools like this that are, you know, thermal heating of the water. And I kind of like this picture because it shows, you know, what's it like. There's a person putting her hand over it, you know, and seeing what that's like. But you can get into these pools, and they were in the 1870s. This was supposed to be the healing waters of these pools, and people would go there and take thermal baths and things and try to, you know, and all. But it's quite a lovely area, and they built back in I think it was the 1890s. They started this hotel. They'd had one there from the 1870s that was wood. They built this one out of stone, and they've got 2 pools that are thermally heated. So
I've actually been there. Kaylee and I've been there, Jack.
Stayed there. Yeah.
I don't know where you were, but
I was probably out in the campground while you were in the 4-star hotel. But it was a very reasonably priced hotel, and some of that is, you know, Hot Springs. It's kind of like they do the gambling there, and they do the other things there that, you know, kind of subsidize the economy in Hot Springs. So, and I did not stay at a hotel, and this would have been last weekend. So the one where I kind of showed up late for our meeting here. And there's a loop, and most trails are kind of out and back, and this one actually makes a loop that goes around and comes back. And the this trail is, they mark it at 28.5 miles, depending on the number of times you get lost. Ours was just over 30 miles. You know, but if you can see in here that there's a mountain there's a mountain there, you know, ones that you're crossing. And what was interesting for me is I wound up with a meeting on Friday I didn't really know that I was going to have. And so instead of leaving at 8 in the morning, I didn't leave till noon. And I got to the park, you know, maybe about 5:30 p.m., like an hour before sunset. And it just came to me, go ahead and go, you know, start. So I put on the backpack and started hiking. And they had a full moon that next night. And so I hiked for 5 hours just with moonlight. And it was very revealing. You have to trust a lot, because although I had a little headlamp, you know, it was the moon that kind of gave me the confidence to go off there and hike up these, you know, a couple of mountains. And so I did about 8 miles or so by moonlight, and then had a very clear thought, stop here for the night. And I looked around, and I passed a couple of other tents nearby and went maybe 100 yards past them and decided, okay, I'm just going to stop here for the night. And I put up a hammock and called it a night. And what was interesting is in the morning when I got up, maybe 50 yards from where I was, there was a group of 3 people that had set up 2 tents, and they were hiking. And what was interesting for me is that it was their very first backpacking trip. And this was not my very first backpacking trip. And so I met these nice people, all from Natchez, Mississippi. And these names that you see here, those are trail names. And in the hobby of hiking and backpacking, you never use your real name. You use a trail name. And this is a little kind of like the Indians would, pick up something and they would rename themselves. Well, it's one of the things that adds to the fun of it is kind of the anonymity that nobody really knows who you are. And you're just there kind of being your best self, meeting new people. And it was kind of an evergreen type of experience, in as much as I had never met these people before, but it turns out I might set up my hammock maybe 50 yards from where they were. And we got talking in the morning, and they had all these questions that were a little bit like, they were somewhat revealing, like kind of like, wow, it looks like you've got your gear all together and you know what you're doing. And well, I was like, well, so what? And kind of like, and they were like, well, this is our first trip. Tell me about what type of water filter you use. Tell me about that hammock you slept in. Tell me this, tell me that. And this lady here, her trail name is now Charbear. She said the biggest concern she had is she's really afraid of bears. And she wanted to hear all types of bear stories. And so they were really good to tell her because, have you ever encountered a bear? Have you ever this and that with a bear? And I said, the best thing about every one of my stories is you'll find out that not a single bear incident that I've had was fatal. Because I'm still here talking to you. But it was like to let them get over their fear of being out in the wilderness. And it was such a blessing for me to, having gone out there by myself, solo hiking, to have all this companionship and people that were just really anxious to know, how do you do this right? And and so it turned out these became my trail companions for the whole weekend, from Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. And they had a great time. I had a great time. It was just like a perfect weekend. On the trail, where you start over here, this is an elevation map, and you could see this is what the trail is like. The part that I hiked the first night was that mountain and camped about here. And at these low spots, that's a water crossing. There's going to be like a river running through there. That's a water crossing. That's a water crossing. That's a water crossing and a half. That's one. Many places in here you cross water. And
so if there had been any question about, well, why doesn't Kathleen go with Jack? These little spikes.
Explain it. The right pointy things, yeah. And the rest of it would be fine, except for all the pointy things. It's
not the bears, it's those pointy things.
Yeah. And you can see every one of these. That's a mile climb. That's a mile going up, each one of those things. So you're having to do this stuff. And so up and a mile down, mile up and a mile down. The thing to remember, going up is optional. Coming down is mandatory. So, but this was the most telling thing about that, that 30 miles that we did is all the up and downs in it. And in there, though, there were just these glorious blessings, one after another. Like, see that right there? That's a person. That's a person standing there on that. And imagine this,
No.
the overlooks of these views. Yeah, you don't want to go up there when it's windy, but I mean, in the bright dawn of daylight, it's just magnificent up there.
Did you go stand out there?
I took the picture.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
There were some critters, a few that, were just because it had gotten into the 30s at night and then would warm up into the 60s during the day. You did have some reptiles who were out on the rocks trying to stay warm. And they were just as lethargic as could be. They were barely moving. You couldn't nudge them out of the way. They were just like, oh, leave me alone. I found a warm spot in the sunshine. And this is a milk snake. And we had one of these that was he's not poisonous. And the snakes that are not poisonous, you can see the heads are kind of rounded like that. This one with the head that is more triangular, that one is poisonous. So that's the one you want to stay away from. These are just fine. When backpacking, you carry everything you need with you. And so generally all this type of stuff that you'd see here laid out is about, for me, it worked out to about 25 pounds. And that's where you want to keep it. You don't want to go heavier than that. And there are things in here like shoes for crossing the water, a sleeping bag, stuff like that. What they don't show in the picture here is they don't really show food. And water is probably your heaviest thing that you carry, stuff. When I was sleeping, instead of using a tent to cut weight, I did the hammock thing. You see these hammocks here, and another gear hammock above it that she's got, and you hang your boots from it. And these are really convenient. They don't weigh a lot, but they get really cold. So I got one of these sleeping bags that goes around the whole hammock. You unzip the foot box and you put the hammock through it. And so it's wrapping you up. And as they say, it's sort of like burritos for bears. Here you come, this nice soft taco on the outside and the good stuff's on the inside. So, but this did keep me warm, and it was really a nice thing to know because, it was just a way where you didn't have to carry much. You carry a little hammock and a little, this little sleeping bag thing. And, when camping out in, it's 30 degrees outside, I put on like 3 pair of socks. I put on a couple of stocking caps. I really try to dress for it, but it was neat to find a way to stay comfortable like that. The main feature of this trail is all the beautiful water that you have there. You had little waterfalls like this, and you had bigger waterfalls like that. And on it, though, the trail zigzagged back and forth across this, so you had to cross the water. And there were 36 small ones, which generally that's kind of hopping from rock to rock. You can get across those. The bigger ones were you had to take your shoes off, put on your water shoes, and keep your boots dry, and cross and use poles and things like this. And you'll see that some of these, like here, it's relatively shallow, and she's just kind of rolled up her pant legs here. And then others, the water's moving pretty fast, and you've got to see them using their trekking poles to balance. This is actually pretty good form because you want to turn sideways to the flow of the water, just so you don't get pushed backwards or pushed face forward into it. And one thing I did wonder on this is that strap right there, that's supposed to be unsnapped. So just something to think about on there. And that's for safety in case you did fall over. Like this picture, here's a guy crossing and he's got his strap here and his strap here still buckled. And this guy has unbuckled his And this guy's the one you want to emulate. He knows that if for some reason you did slip or you fall over, you don't want your backpack to drag you under. And so it's a caution thing, but you have to just really pay attention when you're crossing the water like this. But I mean, it makes it part of the fun. I mean, it adds excitement. And so on that 30-some-mile trip with 44 water crossings, you had a little excitement every mile. Something that would beat that. And there were a couple of places, one near the end where here was like a built overlook where you could see the falls from here and get a handle on what that was like. And so much of this, when you talk about things that you find out are these unexpected blessings that come to you, the people that I was with, the 3 people Mississippi that I ran into there, they just wanted to know everything about hiking and give me a concentrated course in it. And so we looked at the swimming holes, and this trail, there were 3 really excellent swimming holes. The water was too cold to swim in, but I've been here before, and in the summertime, it's just great places. And some of these, like back here, it's really private. Nobody's going to see you off of this thing. And as one of the new hikers said, "Oh, so those are the places you can swim and keep your clothes dry." I said, "Yes, they are, because you can take them off and put them up on the rock and go swimming, and still you're not in view of a camera anywhere. So that's a good thing." And but the place really lent itself to swimming holes, which is a really neat thing.
And Jack, there's a question. Margaret wondered what your trail name was.
Vámonos, which is Spanish for "let's go." Vámonos. So that was my trail name. Yeah. So this was, again, kind of, they sent me this picture, our little hiking group, after we got back. And I think they felt like I was just a guide that was sent there to teach them about this. And I felt like they were this huge blessing to me as having companionship, people to do things with and all.
Well, and I think we've all, like at this point in life, we've learned stuff. And it's really nice to share it with people that don't know it yet. Yeah.
I mean, these were some, young, these 2 young parents, they're in their 30s, and, and it's their first trip. And I even told them about this idea of trail names. So they proceeded to name themselves, which was wonderful. So they'll have that, as a memory. But it was just a perfect weekend. So you feel like the way to feel blessed is to bless others. And it wasn't my intent to go out there to find people to do this and all, but we really did feel, this term that you see, a trail family or tramily, that they'll call it. And that's how we felt at the end of the weekend. So, yes, Kathleen?
Well, I was just going to say, Margaret just wrote in the chat that actually that it's safer to hike with 3, at least 3, so that if somebody's injured, you want to unmute yourself and say that. One stays with the injured. Go ahead.
Yeah, basically one stays supposed to stay with the injured person and one goes for help. We've had a lot of search and rescues in Utah this year.
Oh, do you think a lot more people than maybe normal have been hiking just because they can't do other things?
Exactly, that's what they're saying, and they're not familiar with what to do and or where to go, and they go where they shouldn't, and they're not prepared.
Well,
sure.
There are also a friend of mine, guy I know. He has a company that makes a little GPS device that it calls satellites, and it's to be used in emergencies. And his website is all these people who they've saved their life by pushing the button, because what it does is it calls the Park Service, it calls the local authorities, and it calls your family. And when you push that, you better be darn sure you're in real trouble. Oh, I'm out of Snickers bars. No, you don't push it then. It's like, my leg is broken and the wolves are circling. Okay, then so. There are other ways, but I think it's always good. I mean, it's good to pay attention. Margaret, I'm probably the one that violates it, because I'm the one that does go off into the mountains by himself, and stuff. But again, I've been happy with my experiences, and generally, and maybe this is part of the whole Evergreen thing, is I have to find people to socialize with, and so it's really worked out well for me. Anyway, it turned out to be a really fun thing for these people, and they felt like they came away really excited about backpacking and can't wait to find some trip. And who knows, they might be heading out to West Texas and staying with Billy and Lanny on the way to Big Carlsbad Taverns or something. So, all right. Well, that was what I had, Kathleen.
Well, and one other thing about the trail names, since Margaret asked, and Jack said that if you don't pick your own trail name, the trail or people on the trail will find a name for you. Yeah. And you can be sure that you would like your own better.
Yeah. There was a young man that I met on the Appalachian Trail, and I sat down at a picnic table with him. This is a few days into the hike, and I noticed he didn't have any eyebrows. And you say, "What's your trail?" Oh, I'm Vominos, and he said, "What's your trail name?" Molotov. I said, "What happened?" He says, "Well, on the first day here, I had those little alcohol stoves, and when it's bright sunlight and the alcohol flames in there, you can't really see it. So I poured some more in there, and it went poof up in his face and burned off his eyebrows." And of course, everyone there like, "Oh, Molotov cocktail," So the trail will name you if you don't name yourself.
Jack, there's a question from David. He asked how far did you go and how long did it take? Like hiking?
Well, I did 5 hours of hiking on Friday. We did a full day, sun up to sundown on Saturday, and probably 5 hours on Sunday. And in this, we did, it was 30.01 miles. And some of that 30.01 was, we weren't going, you think, well, gosh, that wasn't very fast. No, it wasn't. We were only going about, I think it was a little over 2 miles an hour on the hike, and you think, well, I can walk on a flat surface at 4 miles an hour. But carrying your backpack, crossing the water, climbing these peaks and stuff like this, it slows you down. But it was something that enabled me to do a really nice hike with a 5-hour drive, and then, as I said, Friday 5 hours of hiking, Saturday probably 12 hours, and Sunday 5 hours. So.
Jack, leave this slide up for a second. Are there any places near some of the river crossings where there might be like a parking lot near a road?
Right here at the beginning where it says Little Missouri Falls Trailhead, right there are overlooks. And you know that it's a good place because not only is there parking and a restroom, there's also nice overlooks to take pictures, and people will take their retrievers down there, the dogs, and throw things and let the dogs go through the waterfalls and stuff like that. And a lot of people hike down, from this area, they'll actually hike back upstream, like right in here, and they'll camp. So sometimes you could go and stay, instead of hiking 30 miles, I just want to hike 2 miles. Okay. Then they can carry stuff in, hike, camp, spend the night, have a nice swimming hole, whatever, and hike back out.
So that's the other end of the trip.
That's right.
Okay.
This is the other end from that. So this you kind of do all the, what I like about this is you get all the hard stuff done at the beginning, and then the rest of it. I mean, you do have a ridge here that's pretty tall, but a lot of this is more of the water crossings in here, and there are, and so that's, it's a fun thing. And you do, I mean, like any outdoor activity, you need to pay attention to the weather. If it's been raining a lot, it might be too deep. But in this case, we'd had very little rain until the week before I went. Then it rained enough and it filled everything back up. So just something to keep in mind, watch the weather.
Yeah. I think there are a couple of questions on Dogwood Canyon. Are there any more on this part of the thing? Billy?
Yeah, we just got through going to Hot Springs, Arkansas for the first time last month. And we actually went through it and stayed going and came back through it and stayed coming back home. And that the parks, there are like 7 bathhouses there managed by different individuals. And so my wife got an idea of which one she wanted to go to. And so when she came back, she scheduled some spa time there, and she said it was great being in that mineral water and
really
very relaxing. Yes.
Okay. Because the times I've been there, they've been closed, and I wondered what they were like inside. Did she tell you?
Yeah, she said the bathtubs were big and roomy and just very enjoyable. And she went with our daughter and son-in-law, and they had a good time while I took care of the grandsons.
Well, it sounds like you probably were happier doing that.
Yeah.
Well, but yeah. And again, this is part of the main building. It's part of the national park system, and so it's going to be well taken care of. And many of those people that have the parks passport, it's one of the places you get a stamp for going. So, put it on the list.
So David asked a question about the picture of the restrooms at Dogwood Canyon. So they just were doing them with a theme. They weren't built by the pioneers. That's what the question asked. They actually were very nice inside. They look rustic, but they weren't. They weren't, flushable, but they were. They
look rustic.
Clean.
They look like you're going to get splinters.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't like that, no. And then another question for this Dogwood Canyon was, can you swim there? And that was like a frequently asked question, and you cannot. But you've got all of Lake of the Ozarks just on the other side of the entrance. So, so there's lots of places to swim in the area, just not in that park. There are a couple other kind of, like you can ride horses. You can, they have a breakfast in the morning, like a roundup where you help round up the cattle and on horseback, and then you have a campfire breakfast. So you pay for all of these things, but they have varying levels of adventures. That you could even go all around this park on segways if you wanted. So anyway, I just encourage people to do both of these things. Arkansas really is just beautiful. It truly is. So, let me see, there's 3 questions here. Did you read the Sears catalog? What is that, David? I know what the Sears catalog is.
traditionally, when you rented some of the privies, there would be a Sears catalog that you would read first before you use the pages. And I was just wondering if
Oh.
Yeah.
they supplied the catalog for you.
Sorry about that. I don't think they had the Sears catalog, or I might have remembered it. I think it was just once you got inside the door, it was a pretty respectable, non-memorable building room. So.
My wife would especially want to know that before going there.
Yes, important information. Okay, any other questions? Billy?
One thing I found unique about Arkansas, and I would not have thought it at all, is as you travel across, it's rice field after rice field after rice field. And they're the #1 rice producer in the United States. They produce 1.3 million of the 2.8 million that's produced in the United States. So,
really?
I was amazed at how much rice production was in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, that whole side of the state by the Mississippi River over there, you just go and you go and you go, and it's just as flat as can be, and the water sits in those rice paddies. Yeah, I mean, that's big country for that. So I had an instance where there are some areas where they used to grow cotton, and this was in the southern part of the state near the Mississippi line, where they converted them from cotton fields to catfish farms. And if you've ever seen these things, it's a 2-acre rectangle, and there's 1,000 of them. As far as the eye can see, they've made these little levees, and they're 4 feet deep, and they're full of catfish. And they grow them there, and birds come by the tens of thousands to eat the catfish. So, I mean, it's something to see, but a lot of the food that we eat, the frozen fish sticks and that sort of stuff, it's grown right there.
Yeah, they're not there for the purpose of feeding the birds.
No, birds come on their own. So anyway, well, I hope you enjoyed getting a taste of Arkansas. It's just a little gem, I mean, there's some of these places that people that don't go there or haven't been there, it's hard, they have an image of something else. We lived in Alabama for 3 years, and it was just one of the most beautiful places we'd ever been, and the nicest people, and just a lovely place. And that's kind of my feeling about Arkansas too. I mean, every experience we've had there has just been wonderful. So, put it on your list. It's a really good place to go. And, feel free to give us a call if you want an insider scoop on what's the best restaurant in Eureka Springs sort of place. All right.
I don't know. Billy might have some ideas on that.
Yeah. All right. Well, Kathleen, you want to move on to the...
Yeah, why don't you stop the screen share?